Hello again guys, and welcome back to another Big Al Devlin video here at the House of Devlin. And today what we're going to be doing is our very first content video for our series here on Britannic paganism. Now what we're going to be looking at specifically today is totem animals and why animals were important to the ancient pagan peoples. Obviously this applies not only just to the Britannic point of view, but to all of the different branches of Western European paganism that exist today. And it's important to understand the significance of animals in the ancient days of paganism so that we ourselves in the modern day pagans, can really make a true connection to our faith and our beliefs and expand our knowledge in a way that mimics and represents as best as possible ancient paganism. Now, as I say, what I'm going to be doing today is a video on totem animals, and we'll be looking at their significance and the reason why these were important to us in our old days of our faith. But then what I'll be doing is I will be filming other videos, because it's quite a large topic, where then I will be looking at specific animal groups and why those particular animals were important to the ancient pagan peoples. Those animals would include horses, bulls, different types of birds, so on and so forth. So there's plenty of content to come. The Celtic peoples were deeply connected to the natural world and the animals in which they encountered there. The beasts of the fields and the forests, the birds within the air, the insects and the reptiles of the earth, and the fishes of the seas were thought not only as inhabiting this world, the material realm, but also as being mediators between this realm and the spirit realm. They were seen as a connection between the material and the spirit. Animals were in fact thought of as being older than mankind itself, and therefore, logically, were seen as being nearer to the gods, and thus were seen as having their counterparts within the spirit realms, to where the shamans would travel to meet them as spiritual guides. And this is a common concept that you see in a lot of different ancient faiths, not only within Western European paganism, but in other paganistic belief systems, essentially, such as the Native Americans, that their animals are spirit guides. Why? Because they are nearer to the gods. They are older than us, and at the very least, it's the form in which spirits take. And that's not as pagans see it. Pagans see animals as being the mediators themselves, not spirits taking on animal form, but literally the animals themselves being mediators to the spirit realms directly. Now, as a result, animals therefore became teachers from whom humans could learn and retain information from. That is, the animals within the material realm. And so that their appearance in the mundane realm, or the material realm, was thought of being as a presaging some kind of insight or supernatural occurrence. And so this explains the reasons why when ancient pagans saw an animal just randomly appear when they're contemplating, what to do with a particular event, that the animal would give them the answer. You could interpret the fates, if you wish, or certainly interpret, what is the most favourable decision according to what animals are doing around you. For example, we look at Hellenistic Roman pagans, which are slightly different to Western European pagans, but nonetheless, these are perhaps the most best known example. They would quite often, before going to war, see what an eagle does, for example, when it's released. And it's that same basic principle that you can learn from animals because of their connection from the spirit realms. They are guides not only within the spiritual realms, but also here in the material realm. Now, reverence for animals is basically as old as humanity itself. Homo sapiens, that's us, man, okay, literally translates to wise man. We're not very humble, are we? Maybe wise, but not very humble. Name ourselves wise men. But anyway, Homo sapiens first appeared within Europe, which is of course where Western European paganism originates, roughly 40,000 years ago. And it is at that point that we find actual archaeological evidence immediately on our entrance to Europe, showing our worship and reverence of certain animals. We find then even more examples within the Upper Paleolithic period. So not 40,000 years ago, but roughly between 30 and 20,000 years ago. There's a huge number of examples of us having reverence or even potential worship of animals that are around us. Now, I've discussed this particular topic in significant detail in the origin of paganism, one of my videos I've done previously, where I give specific locations and dates as when caves were found and what was found in those caves. But ultimately what we see is the very, very, very first animal that we worshipped 40,000 years ago was in fact a bear. And there were plenty of even older examples of that also, but it's the very first animal that we are seen to have worshipped is a bear. And then in later examples, we find continued worship of bears and or a bear deity. We're not sure which one. But then we also see, reverence for animals such as horses and bison also, and deers also is a common animal to have seen reverence for. Now, these paintings, these cave paintings, which is how most of these, or altars that we have found within archaeological findings, are thought as having been made by the shamans who later become known as druids. So shamans and druids are basically the same thing, okay? But we're going to, for ease of reference, just call them shamans here, okay? These paintings and altars are thought to have been made, as I say, by the shamans in contact with the spiritual world. And so the animals depicted are considered to be the mediators between the material realm and the spirit world. And this is why they were painted and altars created, because they were the direct mediators between ourselves and our gods, ultimately. Now, we also see respect given to animals and reverence given to animals, not only through, obviously direct religious ceremonies and evidence for that. We also see a lot of the old Celtic and British tribes being named after animals, or having animals as essentially as totems of their tribe, as symbols, as representatives of their tribe, ultimately. For example, the Epidi are known, means horse people. Another tribe called the Orcai means the boar people. The Toriski are known as the bull people. And the Branovisi are the raven people. In fact, to give you a specific, very direct personal example here, my surname, Devlin, is in ancient Gaelic O'Dovlin, okay? And O'Dovlin means raven black, or black raven, okay? And so you see actually within my own surname as a reference, of course, to how the ancient Britannic people would give animals as identifying features and almost complements to whichever tribes that existed. And so I was actually, my clan, my tribe, if you wish, were known as essentially a bit like the Branovises, the raven people, but the black ravens is what we were known as. Now, we don't just see it within tribes, we also see it within the leaders of the Iron Age tribes, as having, or being described as having characteristics and qualities of animals. For example, King Mark of Cornwall supposedly had horse's ears, and this is, again, a compliment. This is not, a slur of any form. There were a number of Irish chieftains who said to have cat's eyes or cat's ears. And again, in Cornwall, the ruler named Riola Branus is named after the bird, the royal raven. If you look at, the Branovises, that means raven people. So Brano kind of means raven, and Rialo didn't take, much of a jump to understand that Rialo means royal. So Rialo Branus means royal raven. Okay. Now, there are also many different stories within Irish and Welsh origins specifically that describe animals and birds as being sort of significant moments of tales within the tales, acting as messengers from the other worlds. For example, we have within Kilwick ac Olwen, which is a Welsh tale, we have a number of different supernatural animals, such as the blackbird of Kilgowrie, the eagle of Gwenbury, the stag of Rendur, and the salmon of Linley. These are all animals that are found as messengers from the spirit realms within the tales of the ancient pagans that lived in Wales. And there is also a significant amount of reference to shape-shifting from human form, i.e. people like you and me, going into animal form, which of course we all have heard of before, within especially the reference to the druids and the shamans. They were known to be able to shape-shift into animals, but it's in the ancient stories as well. But there was also sort of transference or transformation from animal to human also, which is actually something that perhaps you haven't heard of before. Now, this particular story, along with the story of Pyrrell, the Prince of Dyfed, I will probably tell in another video, because we don't want to get bogged down too much, okay? But ultimately what we see is, from all these different stories, from all the sort of archaeological finds, and then from obviously what we understand of what we found, we can see how animals were significant to the ancient peoples, to the ancient pagan peoples. Ultimately, they were important because they were the mediators between us, the material, and the spiritual realms, i.e. the gods and the heavens, okay? And this was based upon the idea that animals were simply older than us, that they'd been around longer, so were closer to the gods, so they were useful, as I say, as mediators. That didn't mean that we couldn't directly sort of interact, obviously, with the spiritual realms without animals, but animals were useful predominantly as guides and messengers. Guides for us whilst we walk within the spiritual realms through, say, for example, trances. If you're a shaman or druid, you would trance into the spiritual realm, and an animal would be a great guide to help you through the spiritual realms. But also, when you hear within the material realm, the animals themselves, the physical version of the animals, and not the spiritual counterpart, the physical version of the animals would act as a messenger ultimately. And all you've got to do is learn to interpret the signs, speak their language, so to speak. And as a result, you can receive knowledge from the spiritual realm to aid your progress through the material realm. It's a two-way process. So, thanks for watching, guys. This is a simple introduction. The first set of animals we'll be looking at in our next video is horses. Thank you.